Hi there, and welcome to our Fast Track Class, Overcoming Your Fear of Failure. When you hear the word failure, does it conjure up negative thoughts? Does the fear of failure prevent you from stepping outside of your comfort zone? If so, you're definitely not alone in this. The idea of failing at something and facing potential criticism from others can be completely crippling. But what if I told you you don't have to fear failure? In fact, you can transform your own life, starting right now, if you just change your mindset on failure. I'm Allie Kramer, and I'll be leading this class today. My background is based heavily in helping others become the very best versions of themselves. And one thing I've learned over the past 15 years is that mindset is really critical to just about anything you want to do in your life. And for years, I've been helping people improve their mindset to work for them rather than against them. And one common thing that many people struggle with is having a fear of failure, right? This is caused by a variety of reasons, and it's usually as individual as the person themselves. We all have different mindsets when it comes to failure. For example, a failure for someone might be a helpful learning experience for someone else. And might I add that failure itself is not bad. It is always a learning experience. There is always something good to be gained from experiencing failure. So that's one key mindset shift. But still, many of us are afraid of failing. But this fear can really stop us from doing the things that can help us make progress to reach our goals in life. And in turn, it can kind of be paralyzing. Again, the fear of failure can stem from various places. Maybe it's from humiliating experiences in childhood, or maybe you've experienced traumatic events in the past and you have them fresh in your mind, so you're afraid of them happening again. Or a lot of self-talk can also impact whether you're fearful of failure or not. So if you have negative self-talk going on inside your head, you're going to likely have a bigger fear of failure. But this does not have to be a lifelong struggle. In today's class, I'm going to be sharing a key way to overcome this fear and start embracing the idea of failure so you can reach your most sought-after goals. At the end of the class, I'll be answering any questions you may have, and I'm including a helpful worksheet through a link that I'm going to provide, and that's going to help you better process these ideas. Also has the questions that I'm going to be going over for you to ask yourself written down, so you don't have to take notes. Just really take this information in and see how your mindset shifts as you take it in. And definitely stick around for that worksheet. You're not gonna want to miss that. It's super helpful. So first, we're gonna start with this idea of using imagination to overcome fear. So first, let's start with what is fear. Well, fear is a self-created idea. It's really about what might happen, not what will happen, right? Because we can't predict the future. So our fear of failure is about maybe failing, not definitely failing. So most fear itself is rooted in our thoughts and the anticipation of events that might happen, which is really just one way of using our imagination. When we imagine something bad will happen, we fear it. And likewise, if we imagine something good happening, we look forward to it. It's a lot like when we were kids, right? And maybe we feared monsters under our bed, or we are afraid of the dark because we think something might happen, right? Something might be lurking there. And kids are a great reference point for you to utilize because they have an amazing way of utilizing their imagination. So fear itself is, again, simply a product of our imagination. Then what we need to do is tap into our inner child and imagine something else in place of that fear. And again, this is something we teach a lot at Lifehack, that mindset is key to just about everything. You really want to shift your mindset if you want to accomplish your goals. This is so, so important. So here, what I'm suggesting you do is not a new or novel approach. Rather, pretty much anyone you can name that is successful in life has tapped into this idea and the power of imagination, because it can really make or break you. So the method I'm going to teach today is quite simple, but very, very powerful. But you really have to let yourself believe that it works, meaning that you might have to do it over and over again until you're like, oh yeah, this is good. But you really have to believe it. Tap into your inner child and let your imagination take over so you can believe this idea this method, that it works. Because belief is an incredibly powerful tool to have in your arsenal. And just as you can believe that something negative will happen, which causes a fear of failure or oftentimes a failure, you can just as easily believe that something wonderful will happen. Okay, so we're going to dive into how this works. And again, look for the worksheet at the end so you can kind of just listen to me teach this method, and then you can tap into it later with the worksheet on your own time. So by now, many of you might think, okay, I came to this class expecting to learn some techniques on how to overcome the fear of failure, and she's telling me to imagine good things. Maybe you think I'm a little bit out there, but please hear me out. Tapping into your imagination to overcome fear is essentially a method of visualization. And numerous studies have shown that this is a solid way to make things happen for you. Studies on the brain reveal that thoughts produce the exact same mental instructions as actions. Now think about that. And I think maybe you've heard of athletes using this method to improve their performance during events. They'll visualize themselves running a race or any other athletic feat that they're looking to do really, really well. They're visualizing themselves with high performance, and they end up usually nailing it. And you can use this method too to help you overcome any fear that might be taking over your imagination. So here's how we do it. And first, I should mention that this exercise is best done at night. It's a great way to kind of relax your mind, get into this practice of using your imagination, and then it helps you go from your positive imaginative state straight into sleep. And this helps your subconscious process these positive thoughts while your mind is in actively rested state, right? So you're going to start with a pen and pencil and a couple sheets of paper, or you can maintain a journal for this. I actually maintain a journal for my thoughts and my imaginative thoughts at night. It really does help. And then you can kind of go back and see, wow, I can't believe I used to be afraid of XYZ. It's so great that that's in the past, and now I have no fears over that. Makes sense? It's kind of like a personal development tool that you can keep next to you on your nightstand. And again, this paper doesn't need to be fancy, but should yield enough room to answer a few questions. So when you have your paper and pen handy, you're going to write down these questions and answer them one by one. And the key here is to really tap into your imagination regarding both your fears and your desired outcome. So the opposite of your fears, what you really want to happen, right? Okay, so I'm going to go over the questions real quick. Question number 1 is ask yourself, what do I want to achieve? So likely you want to achieve something that you're afraid is going to have a failure, right? Write that down. And then you're going to ask yourself number 2, which is how could I potentially fail? So I really want you to think of all the scenarios in which you could fail at this action and what you're really afraid of. And then number 3 is how can I crush this fear and replace it with a really positive outcome so I succeed instead of fail? So you're going to flip the script and you're going to say, okay, that fear doesn't exist anymore, or that's definitely not happening. How am I going to succeed? And then number 4 is what will the positive outcome be? Okay, so then you're gonna just list the positive outcome. What will happen when you succeed? And then number 5, you're gonna get a little deeper into it. It's gonna really spark your imagination. Number 5 is what will it look like when I do succeed? Okay, and then number 6, this is really critical. This is probably one of the most crucial parts of feeling that belief that I was talking about earlier. Number 6 is how will I feel when I succeed? So think about yourself in that moment of success. How will it feel? Will you feel proud? Will you feel energized? Will you feel excited? Will you feel grateful? Oh, there's definitely lots of options that can happen with your feelings, right? Depending on what your idea is of success and what that will look like, it's going to conjure up different feelings for you. So once you have these questions written and answered, it's time for step 2. So step 2 is actually reflection and sparking creativity and imagination. So you're going to reflect and then you're going to spark some more creativity and imagination with what you already have accomplished through answering these questions. So you're going to take the answers to questions 4, 5, and 6, and then you're going to read them over again until they really stick with you. I want you to really visualize yourself succeeding. Tap into that imagination, get it churning, and make it believable. So then after you've read over the answers to number 4, 5, and 6, you're going to get comfortable. And again, I recommend you do this before sleeping. So make sure, your teeth are brushed, face is washed, everything that you do for a nighttime routine. Go ahead and do that before starting this exercise so you can definitely get comfortable, get into the mode to sleep, feel yourself relax. If you're lying in your bed, which most of us probably are when they're sleeping at night, feel free to lie flat on your back or in whatever most comfortable position you find yourself in. And then again, call to mind that scenario you painted in the questions 4, 5, and 6. Think about that success. What does it look like? How do you feel, right? And then think about that positive outcome. Just really sit on that. Make it feel tangible. Make it feel accessible to you. Make it feel real. Make it as though it's already happened. And so when you've imagined that the scenario has already happened, you're imagining that the scenario has taken place and you have succeeded at what you want. It's already happened. It's done. This is what you have to convince yourself of when you're doing this step. So I want you to imagine every single detail you can think of and put yourself there in that scene right now. No, not right now, but when you're about ready to go to sleep, right? When you're doing this exercise. But you can do it right now as well. And the best scenario possible for your outcome is what I want you to think of. Imagine what you're wearing, what the air feels like, who's around you, what it sounds like. Really paint yourself a vivid picture of this experience. And as you're rested peacefully, allow your imagination to really just take over. Visualize everything you can imagine, how you will look, how you will feel, how others might feel, how they might react. And then visualize that it's already happened. And I want you to remain in this imaginative, positive state as long as you possibly can until you fall asleep. And as you're going through this exercise, I know when I first started doing this, my mind wandered a lot. And let me just tell you, that's completely normal and it's totally okay and you will get through it. Just keep coming back. Every time you see your mind or see thoughts in your mind drifting off or you're thinking about something else that has nothing to do with you succeeding at your goal, just bring it right back to that goal. Bring it back to your success. And just do it over and over again until, again, you fall asleep. And say to yourself, as you're doing this, I have no fears. Everything has already worked out the way I want. And that's it. It sounds really simple, and in theory it is. It's a little more complicated in practice because if you're like me, I used to fall asleep at night with just a plethora of like anxieties and fears, and I would resurrect things that had happened like tens of years ago and just be like, oh, why did I do that? We don't want those thoughts, okay? That's not going to help you get a good sleep, and it's certainly not going to help you overcome your fear, whether it's a fear of failure or a fear of letting someone down, any type of fear that you have. You want those positive thoughts coming in. And so you're going to repeat this exercise every single night. Say you have a big event coming up. You're going to repeat this every single night. And as you do so, right before the event, as you do so, notice the fears that crop up in your imagination. And if it does, go back to your success and visualize it as though it's already occurred. You have already succeeded in your imagination, right? This is kind of fun. You just picture yourself being awesome, and it's a really good exercise. And don't let your imagination dwell or spend any time on those potential failures. Just knock them out. One visualization I like to use is when a thought comes into my mind as I'm trying to think successful and positively. If a thought comes in, I just pluck that thought out and stick it in a box. Just pretend there's a little box there in your mind. Just stick it in the box. Deal with that later. Let it go for now, because right now you're focusing on your success. You're focusing on the fact that you are not afraid of failing, right? Bring it back to you've already achieved the success. You're really there. You believe it yourself. And repeat to yourself that you have nothing to fear, that it is done, you've already succeeded at this. And if you really believe that fear to be squashed and what you visualize has already come true, you're going to already start to see a major mindset shift. So let me give you an example here. I'll use myself as an example. I used to have a huge fear when I first started having to do a lot of public speaking or events in front of people. I wasn't trained to do that in my formal education. It was something I never thought I would be doing, but for my career to propel, I actually had to do it a lot. And so I used to be so afraid. I was terrified of failing and messing up whatever I'd be talking about and looking like a fool in front of so many people. It was mortifying to me. And at the time, nothing seemed more scary than flopping flat on my face in front of a bunch of people. Oftentimes hundreds of people or thousands of people if it was online, right? Like that's a little intimidating. I get it. But I knew that if I could psych myself out enough, then I'd do better than if I had sat in my fear and let those feelings dwell. I knew that that was negative. It felt bad. It felt bad to fear things, right? So already our subconscious is saying, this isn't right. There's something not right about this. If you're feeling bad, so trust your feelings, right? If that fear is making you feel bad, you need to think about the success. And so basically what I did, I hadn't used this exact same technique that we're teaching here, though I did use the second step to visualize my best case scenario. And I repeated it for days up until the event because I was so afraid days up until the event. You know, I would sign up for a speaking event or someone would contact me and say, hey, do you want to come do an event, months down the road? And I'd be like, sure, this is great. And then maybe the week before, I would just start freaking out. And let me tell you, that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you if you're afraid of whatever you're looking towards. It doesn't help the audience who's going to be watching me up there flopping all over my presentation because I'm so afraid. So I basically used this method of picturing myself, imagining myself, best case scenario, everything I could possibly think of, visualizing that success. And what happened was over time, my fear of failure with public speaking all but vanished. Because the more I practiced this technique, visualizing success, imagining success, it really did allow that fear to have less and less of a grasp on me. Because I gave that fear less space in my imagination. So essentially I was ignoring my fear and replacing it with positive successes. So let's pretend I use the questions above. I'm going to go through them again one by one and how I would have answered them. And maybe I did in my mind at the time. So number one, what do I want to achieve? Well, I want to give an amazing presentation, right? And leave the audience with something of value that they can walk home with and be like, that was worth my time. That was essentially what I wanted to achieve. But number two asks how I could potentially fail. And this is where my thoughts just started swimming all over the place in dark, dark waters. So I thought that I could just blank out in front of everyone. I could stumble upon my words. And I still do that sometimes. That's totally cool. We're human, right? It's fine. I could maybe pass out on stage, or I could get sick on stage. Maybe I would trip and fall going up onto the stage. Or I think one of the things I feared most was that I could get a super hard question from one of the audience members that would make me look like a complete idiot. Or I could bore everyone to death, right? So those are some fears that come up when you're afraid of public speaking. Other people might have different fears, but they're all valid fears. They're just not worth your time to ruminate on them. So number three, how can I crush this fear and replace it with a very positive outcome so I succeed instead of fail? So what I tell myself is I will rock my presentation because I'm knowledgeable, I'm prepared, I'm engaging, I know my stuff. And when someone asks me a hard question, my confidence will be enough to say, you know what, I actually don't know the answer to that, but that's a really great question. And, that's okay. That's the truth. That's not anything to be afraid of to say, I don't know. And then I'm going to get up on stage, I'm going to present myself like a sophisticated professional, and I'm going to leave proud. So the number four is, what will the positive outcome be? Well, when I walk away proud from that presentation with no regrets and excitement about my performance, I'm going to feel great. People will thank me at the end for me taking my time to speak with them, and I will thank them for joining. And then afterwards, I'm going to have a celebratory dinner with my friends who are also at the conference. And we're going to cheers to the success of the whole day, right? So number five, what will I look like when that happens? So I'm picturing myself, I'm going to be well dressed. I have my outfit all picked out. I'm going to be relaxed, no more stress. I'm not going to look like a ball of nerves. I'm going to look happy. I'm going to be engaged with my surroundings, confident and poised. And the people around me are also going to be engaged, and they're going to feel good because I feel good. And again, that goes into number six. How do you feel? I'm going to feel so grateful and so excited about the future and secure in the fact that I can do this over again. The fact is, I'm going to do it better next time because I've already visualized it and then I already did it and it's already been a success. So the next time it's going to be a breeze. So, okay, if you guys are sitting there thinking, well, this sounds a bit arrogant. I don't want to go there. That's too much of like how great I am. I get it. I do. Definitely. But let me tell you right now, if there's one place in time for you to be arrogant, it's in your own imagination, right? Because, it's more self-empowerment and confidence in our own abilities. After all, if we don't envision ourselves at our very best, who will for us? Likely nobody. You got to do it for yourself. You're your number one fan, right? And I promise you, if you try this method out on your very worst fears of failure, you're going to start having a major mindset shift. Do it every single day, whatever your fear is. I remember when I was younger, I used to have a fear of parking lots. Not that I was afraid of them. I was afraid of finding a space. Like, that was an anxiety I used to have. Anything that you can imagine that you might be afraid of, really use this technique on it and squash those fears with your success. And again, I promise you, you're really going to change your mindset. And since 2013, when I first started doing public speaking, I've done numerous public speaking events, both in person, online, on radio, TV, I guess. And I've never had my fears realized. In fact, it's almost always been the best case scenario. And I actually love this type of work now and have little to no fears when it comes to speaking in front of groups. So the next time you're finding yourself with the fear of failure and it's holding you back, start analyzing it and tap into your imagination to reshape your outcome into whatever it is that you can imagine. Something really happy, something really successful, something really positive. You're going to be impressed with the power of your own mindset, and your fears will grow less and less over time. Like the whole entire, anything you can think of, your fears, they're just going to start going away. Okay, so now I'm going to check and see if there's any questions that have come in during this class, and let me check and see what we got. Yeah, okay, so we have the question every day. I'm going to answer that one first. I would say every day if you're holding fears inside of you, right? So like for an example, if you have something big coming up in a week's time, maybe you want to ask your boss for a promotion. Yes, definitely every day, starting tonight. Go through this imaginative scenario about that success that you're going to achieve. Now, if you're living a pretty solid life and you're not feeling fearful every day, you don't have to do this. But I would recommend that you do an exercise that talks about you succeeding in other ways. Maybe it's not the fear of failure, but maybe you can visualize your own successes in different ways. If you have something exciting coming up, imagine the best case scenario and keep doing that over and over, because the point is, I want you to get into the habit of falling asleep, where you drift into a dream state, and instead of your mind being cluttered with anxieties and fears and worries and past events that didn't go well, think about the future. Think about wonderful, happy things that can kind of set the stage for the next day. So you dream and you have those wonderful thoughts, and then you wake up and you say, this is great. I feel good. Okay, next question. What about cases where we have actually faced these failures and which are not just a figment of imagination? Excellent question. Definitely. So this is where another technique can be kind of handy, and I would recommend you do it. It's called revision. And so let's use myself as an example again. Say I had a fear of failure of public speaking, and I got up on stage and I actually tripped and fell. That'd be horrible, right? The audience would sit there. Maybe my note cards would go everywhere. Maybe it was a complete disaster. So when you're facing something like this, if you're afraid of something recurring again, the first thing you're going to do before you start the steps, or maybe in the middle, so like after question 3, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? You're going to revise that situation in your mind. So instead of me remembering falling and my note cards going everywhere and the entire audience laughing at me and me crying and walking off stage, no, that didn't happen. Even though it did actually happen, right? In reality, in my mindset, in my mind, in my imagination, I'm going to pretend that it went perfectly. And I'm going to revise that experience so it has relevance to my success. So no more thoughts about me falling on stage or making a fool of myself in front of everyone. What I'm going to do instead is go through that and revise that entire situation until it came out perfectly, exactly how I wanted it. Do it over and over again until it feels real. It's a simple technique that you can kind of implement, again, if you have experienced a fear or you're experiencing a fear of a failure that you've had in the past. I hope that's helpful for you. All right, let's see if there's any more questions. Not yet, but feel free as, as this class has ended and it'll still be on YouTube for you to watch. Feel free to ask questions and I'll come back and chime in with any answers that I can provide to you, hopefully helpful. So you've made it to the end of the class, which is great. And I hope that this has inspired you to kind of think about fear of failure in a different way. Again, at the end, once I'm off here, I'm going to add the link to the worksheet for you to download that will go over all the steps that I talked about. And it's also going to help you tackle your own fears dealing with failure to realize a much more positive outcome. And it's downloadable and it's interactive, meaning you can type directly into it. So anytime you find yourself faced with a fear of failure, or really a fear of anything, refer to this worksheet and tap into the power of imagination to revise your fear into a success. It also includes a section for those of us prone to a more negative attitude with some solid tips on how to make this process easier for you. So if it's not just a fear of failure that you're suffering with, but you have that negative self-talk, you have traumatic experiences in the past, you have people around you that are making you feel bad, this definitely is going to be helpful for you as well. And it also includes some bonus info on goal setting. So to access the worksheet, just follow the link that I'm going to include after I'm done with this video here. And that's it for this fast track class. I hope this method has already shifted your mindset into realizing that you do have control over a lot, including your own fears, right? When you tap into the power of your own imagination, truly anything is possible, especially your own success. Never sell yourself short. You are capable of amazing things. And don't let your fears take control and hold you down. Instead, use the power of imagination to propel yourself to new heights. Thanks for joining, everyone, and I'm going to see you in our next class. Bye-bye.